Hi, I'm Marissa and I'm an interpreter here at Historic Brackensville. Today we're going to be doing a really interesting experiment. We are going to be doing some dyeing with pokeberries. So pokeberries, you'll see them growing along the sides of the road or maybe at the edge of a forest, but they're a pretty common weed here in South Carolina, and I'm sure you're all familiar with these berries. But what you might not know is that these berries make an excellent dye. And we're going to be exploring that today in our Time Travel Tuesday. So the pokeberry dyeing recipe that we're going to be using today comes from a farmer's journal from New England in 1824 and was also printed in the Goody's Ladies book in 1866. And what makes this recipe so interesting is not only are we going to be dyeing with the pokeberries, but we are going to be dyeing inside of a pumpkin. So this recipe calls for the dye bath to be prepared and then poured inside the pumpkin. And then you add your fiber. We're going to be using some hand-spun wool along with some linen scraps. You add that into the pumpkin with the pokeberry dye, and then you let it sit. And the magic happens with the pumpkin. Now, a pumpkin, as we all know, pumpkin is very nutritious. And the reason why it's so nutritious is because it has naturally occurring vitamins and minerals, including things like potassium, iron, magnesium, and copper. And these metals act as a mordant on the fiber, which help the dye bath actually stick to the fiber and make the color fast. So we're going to be seeing how this works out here at Historic Brackensville. I'm going to show you the whole process, and then I hope you'll come out this Saturday and join us to see how the final product turns out. So the first step in the process after you've picked your pokeberries is you have to remove the pokeberries from the stem. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pick all of these pokeberries, and you can use fresh pokeberries, and you can also use pokeberries that are dried, because the dried pokeberries will reconstitute once you add some liquid into the dye bath. All right, so now we have all of our pokeberries into our dye pot. And what I have to do next is squish them. So I'm going to take this ladle, this metal ladle, and I'm going to squish down to make sure we're getting all of the juice out of the berries. Now that we've squished them all up, they look pretty well squished to me, I am going to add in 1 cup of vinegar. And this also helps the dye set. And then I'm also going to add a little bit of water. All right, now I'm going to take the dye bath and I'm going to stick it over the fire. And the goal is to get it warm to like a simmer, but you do not want it to go into a rolling boil. Now we're going to let the pot simmer over the fire for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to pull it out, let it cool, and then it will be ready to go into our pumpkin. So now I'm going to cut up the pumpkin. I'm just going to cut the top off. I'm going to scoop out all of the seeds and guts and hollow out the pumpkin so that it's ready for the dye bath. Okay, so now I'm going to take our fiber samples. We've got some linen sheets here, and we've got some yarn, and we've got some yarn that was hand spun here on site. So this is our Gulf Coast native sheep yarn, and it was just soaking in some water. And we're gonna put it in our pumpkin. And we've got our dye bath, which simmered for about 20 minutes over the fire. And I am now going to pour the dye bath into our pumpkin. Okay, so now the dye bath has been added to the pumpkin along with the fiber that we're dyeing. And what we're gonna do is just take the top of the pumpkin, put it on top, and we are gonna let it sit. And the next time we are gonna open it is on Saturday, when we will be revealing our yarn and fabric and see how the dye worked out. So if you're interested in seeing the final product, please come visit us on Saturday for Harvest on the Homestead Pumpkin Day.